So these are the 3 items I found at Goodwill to transform myself as inspiration for you for the Goodwill Flim competition. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at this awesome nightstand, which I'm actually going to be using more as an end table. So when looking at this piece, what I really liked about it was this unique wood detail on the front drawer. Of course, obviously right now I don't love the color of this, but I feel like this can be enhanced to really become a cool design detail. Likewise with this top. So currently this has a stone tile top on it. Unfortunately it's chipped and cracked, but I feel like this is something that can be easily replaced and be made into something much cooler. Plus, in total, this was only $3.99. So it's an awesome price point, and I'm confident that this will be really cool when it's done. Let's go ahead and get started on this piece. The first thing I'm looking at doing is actually changing this top, because it's a cheap piece of porcelain tile that's chipped. But while I was in the store, looking at this $3.99 price tag, I also noticed that this pops out super easily. So although this was the part of the item that was broken and chipped and damaged, it's the easiest piece to remove. So we'll get rid of this one. And I actually ended up going to Floor & Decor and was able to source a piece of marble tile the same size. So this is actually a true piece of marble, same size, and it fits in pretty perfectly. Now, due to this being natural stone, it does sit a little bit higher. However, this is actually something I really like. So because I think now that we do have this as natural stone, the fact that it sits higher actually makes it more of a unique detail and brings attention to it. So second step for this, as I'm going to be diving into painting, I actually want to keep this little gold knob authentic. I want to maintain the gold detail with this. So I'm going to start by taping this off and just kind of going around this piece of metal here so that way we can maintain it. A lot of times when taping products before painting, I actually like to do really small pieces because I think sometimes you actually get better coverage by doing small pieces rather than large pieces. My goal with this is to make sure that the metal is fully covered, but the wood stays exposed. So by coming along the edge here, I'm able to do this with really small pieces, using this flat edge as my foundation for this hardware to actually really make sure that it stays protected and maintains the gold coloring. One of the things I really like to do is anytime that I'm adding tape, I take my nail and I'll actually go along the edge to push in the little edges of the tape to make sure that it's secured and that it has a tight seal, and also that it's not blocking any of the wood either. So it looks a little hodgepodge in terms of painter's tape, but the end result will protect the gold detail here as we paint the shelf next. So part of my process with this nightstand was a little bit of indecision as trying to figure out what I wanted to do with this and how to transform it, because anytime that you're dealing with a piece of furniture, you have lots of options. But I decided I wanted to try to work to coordinate these items together to create a nice setting. So I'm actually going to paint the nightstand black and white. Classic, timeless, and with the new piece of marble that we have here, it'll grow great. So for this drawer, we've already taped off this detail here, which is the gold hardware that I want to maintain and ensure that it stays gold. So now I'm using my good friend, Mr. Rust-Oleum again, or Mrs. Rust-Oleum, I guess it could go either way, to actually start spray painting this drawer white. I like the detail here, and I think with it having a lighter color, it'll actually pop against the new black frame coming up next. Anytime that you're doing a DIY project, it's important to clean first. I cannot emphasize that enough, because as you're adding color or stain or reworking something, if you have dirt underneath, it's not going to work out. So as my first step, I am actually wiping it clean. You get a lot of dirt and debris off, but that's a really important part of this process. So before you DIY, make sure that you clean it first, so that way it's ready to take on the new appearance that you're going to give to it. All right, so now we're gonna get started with painting this dresser. So I'm actually using PPG Diamond. This is a product that you can purchase at Home Depot. It's awesome for painting furniture or painting kitchen cabinets. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I love to paint cabinets. That was a hint that you should be following me on Instagram at Flipping Diaries. But nonetheless, so we're gonna pour this into the container here and I'm gonna start rolling. The main thing, again, you wanna make sure that this is very clean. And I like to pour a decent amount in, but not the whole can, because you want to make sure that you don't get too much on the roller because it's really important to maintain consistency on your brush as you're rolling through the process. So I really like to use these, this brand. It's the Purdy White Dove. And I think that they do a really great job at making a nice, smooth, finished surface. So what I like to do is you want to make sure that you get the entire roller totally wet and totally submersed in paint. Probably going to need to add a little bit more. But now that this roller has adequate paint on it, I'm going to begin on the side here. Just smooth, even rolls to ensure that it has a consistent finish. A lot of times people are really concerned about the texture that it will leave behind, but as long as you put it on evenly, it should dry smooth without any texture. So sometimes during a project, you have to accept that things are not going according to plan. This is one of those times. So as you can see from this nightstand, as I'm rolling the paint on, it's not absorbing very well. So clearly the finish that was on this nightstand is actually resisting absorbing the paint, which happens. So I'm actually gonna stop painting for right now, let this kind of start to soak in, and then I'm gonna go at it with a can of spray paint. Again, spray paint, my best friend. Basically to give it, almost as if to prime it, to give it a first coat. So then that way, it's something, the rolled on paint will eventually stick to the spray paint. So I'm pausing with the rolling paint, moving on to spray paint next. All right, so now I'm in the process of actually removing all of this green tape from the hardware to actually expose the gold handle underneath. So this was a detail that was really important to me to keep just because I couldn't unscrew it. So for me, that was something that I wanted to highlight. So I've kept it, and now with the white, I think it pops so much more. It's kind of a little bit of a vintage cool handle. And I've gone ahead and finished painting the entire frame of this black, put the piece of marble back in, and so now it's time to add this drawer to really kind of complete this piece. There we go. And so altogether, this went from being a boring beige nightstand into kind of an awesome, cool side table nightstand piece. I think the stone top though is really the awesome piece here to highlight, because when you're in Goodwill and you're looking for items, it's important to understand what can be taken away. The top, the hardware, the legs, what can you transform and how can you edit those pieces to maximize the design and style of the piece. This nightstand was an awesome transformation as well. It was one of the larger items because there was a couple different processes involved in actually making this happen. The biggest part of this was actually changing out the top. You might recall this used to be a porcelain tile that was chipped and it was a dark beige, but I was able to actually go and find a piece of marble that fit the same size to put it in its place. The marble was only $3 and adds a great, really luxurious and elegant touch to the table. The rest was painted, and then we did a cool contrasting detail on the drawer to really highlight the fact that it has this neat design detail. Altogether, these three items have now transformed into being something that's beautiful and something that you would think that you'd be finding in a high-end store. But they came from Goodwill and are an awesome example of what Goodwill Flip is looking for.